Hi, this is Jo again, and tonight I'm with Paul Beard from Certain Mortgages. Hi,
Jo.
Paul.
Hi, Jo.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you so much for letting us come into your home this evening to talk about mortgages. So tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the business.
Okay, so I got into the business, which is now over 25 years ago. So I first qualified as a financial advisor in 1996. I started out actually from uni as an estate agent.
Oh, wow.
I'd come into a market whereby, the estate agency market wasn't great at the time. So I left for a while, but I've always been in and around property. So, from investing, buying the first one at university.
Yeah. You bought
Selling,
your first home at university?
yeah, and
Wow.
then with a mortgage, which was way easier back then,
Yeah.
and allowed me to make some money, to then go off and buy a house of my own, at a younger age. But I went back into mortgages in 1996, have run a mortgage packaging company, have seen everything that there is to see through buy-to-let,
Yeah.
commercial mortgages, large loans, sort of 30 million quid. And obviously, the ups and downs of mortgage markets going, 1996, 2007,
Yeah.
and obviously where we are currently, it's a little bit of a different state than it has been for the last 10 years.
Yeah, definitely. And so tell me, what are the steps for someone if they are applying for a mortgage now, as opposed to before?
Yeah, well, I think the most important thing is to not to get caught up with buying the house and the excitement of buying a house. So the very first thing that I think people should do is actually talk to a broker.
Right.
Because what a lot of people do is that they go out and they fall in love. And they fall in love with a house and they desperately want it. And it might be that there's something in that house that's the wrong thing, that where it could be, for example, that it's a freehold flat, which is really difficult to get a mortgage on. A lot of new homes have got leases on them.
Right.
Or it may be as simple as being just too expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, and the trouble is that when it comes to buying houses, and as an estate agent, you know this so well, everybody's got an opinion.
Yes.
And everybody's an expert.
Yes. Yep.
But very few people are actually regulated. So you can, as an estate agent, you can give advice, but as I understand it, you can't necessarily be sued on it, if it's the wrong advice. As a mortgage broker, there's a financial conduct authority sat behind you saying you've got to give the right advice for people. You've got to have the documentation to back it up and the reasons why.
Yeah. Well, we do have the property ombudsman as well, so we can be taken to court over things that we've said. So we're not allowed to tell lies. Okay. So so you're saying know how much you can afford before you go looking,
and why.
Right.
And why you know how much you can afford, because again, there's not too many properties on the market at the moment. So if you're in a competition with someone, you definitely know you can afford £200,000 or 2 million. It's sort of irrelevant. But if you lose that property, at least then you can go off to the next one, or have a reserve, or not be too despondent. But if you are stretching yourself to the limit, you might be stuck with one lender.
Right. Okay.
So it removes your choice. And I think when it comes to something as sensible as like buying a house, which might be your home for life, why do you want to limit your choice to two people that would say we can lend you the money?
It's going to cost you X.
It's going to cost you X and Y on top of it.
Yeah.
So I think the most important thing is to understand why you're buying a house. Understand, the reasons what you're doing. So a lot of people go into a house and say, we need a second bedroom for the kids. And they haven't got kids yet. Okay, that's fair enough.
Fair enough. Yeah.
That's really good. So therefore, but you're safe with maybe a 3-year fixed rate mortgage. But if you're buying a house with 2 bedrooms, you've already got 1 kid.
Yeah.
It might be that you need to look towards that 3rd bedroom, change your areas, change your parameters, because the mortgage costs and stamp duty and moving costs, removal men, solicitors' fees, etc., mortgage penalty fees.
Oh yeah, well, if you finish your mortgage before you're supposed to.
Yeah, and you need to move house, it might actually be that, you know, that's such a cost prohibitive thing, you can get yourself into the wrong decision. So I think it's really important to say, look, what can I actually afford? You know, how long can I afford it for?
And why am I trying to afford it?
Yeah, and what the life circumstances are.
So is that something that you would do with them, is talk about what, why and how?
Yeah, really much so. And I think that that's something that sometimes is missing in terms of financial services. People love to give advice, but they don't like to understand what someone's life is like. We're all individual. And, you know, there's well over 100 mortgage lenders out there. They
Still?
Still.
Oh, okay.
They don't offer one scheme each.
Yeah.
You know, they offer a multitude of schemes.
Yeah.
Different ways to repay them, different rates of interest, different styles of rates of interest, and how to charge. And that actually can be driven down to, you know, like I said, something about, is it a divorce settlement? It's a part of life. So, you know, do you really want to jump into something that's a 5-year deal if you're in that period where you don't actually know emotionally where you are when you're getting together with a new couple?
Yeah.
So talk to someone and get a bit of sense behind it, then go with your pay slips, your bank statements, your credit reports, etc., to understand how much you can borrow.
Okay. So I thought step one was go with your bank statements, your mortgage, you know, all your pay slips and all of that. But you're saying, actually, let's go reel it back and look at why.
Yeah, because if I suddenly jump to, you know, this is people we're talking about. If I suddenly say to an individual, you can borrow £400,000, they're going to start looking, knowing that £400,000 is in the background. But if they actually tell you a different story about why they're borrowing or what they're borrowing, maybe their job's flexible, so maybe they need to, you know, have that facility to move up and down the country. A lot of people are working abroad now and getting, you know, 6-month contracts, or maybe it's a 0 hours contract on a mortgage. These are all difficulties which there's volatility in the decision. So to go there straight away and say, I can just borrow X is doing what I would say, it's the maximising what you can borrow, and therefore you're looking for the most expensive house, which in the London and the South East, you can understand why people do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, if you think about that, so if you're lucky enough to be able to afford what you want, there's no need to maybe go that extra £200,000 just yet.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're investing in property,
different things.
it becomes a different matter. You want to know exactly how much you can afford from day one, because you know the reasons for making money.
Absolutely.
So that becomes a different scenario. So the most important thing, I think, is to actually, though, decide up front what are the reasons that I am looking to move.
Okay.
And do tell your broker that, because a good broker will listen and fit their advice to what your needs are, not just your financial needs.
Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that. And so you mentioned a couple of situations, but there are tricky situations, aren't there? Such as being self-employed or gifted inheritance.
Yeah, I think the property market is obviously, you know, over the last 20 years, prices of properties got really expensive.
Yes, they did.
So therefore, there's more and more convoluted ways in which to borrow money.
Yeah.
And the mortgage lenders are also inventing different ways in which to get through the fact that sometimes people can't afford what they want.
Yeah.
So if you are then, you know, multiplying that by 0 hours contracts, maybe self-employment.
And you paid yourself no money but dividends.
Yeah, and your accountant said, well, do you know what, I can save you a huge amount of tax. But you're on 12 grand a year, you can only borrow 40 grand on a mortgage.
Yeah.
So it's really important, I think, again, you know, to sort of say, look, when you're doing this sort of stuff, 6 months in advance.
Okay.
Plan it out, you know, because 6 months in advance, you can do something about the way that your books would appear. You can start to show some income coming in, depending on the status of your employment. So you can be as a self-employed person, you could be, you know, a sole trader. You can be a partner in a company.
Yeah.
You could be in a limited company, you know, and very subtle tweaks can change your interest rate from 7% to 4%.
Wow.
You know, and 3% on a 300 grand mortgage.
That's double the amount you pay
Yeah,
back.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
9 grand, you know, in a year savings straight away. So most people aren't going to get that saving in a tax payment.
No.
Yeah. So don't be driven by taxation, for example, if you're self-employed.
Okay. Fair enough.
You mentioned difficulties in other situations. People forget to talk to brokers as well if they see in a property to mention and ask about things like leases.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So short leases, the wrong leases. You know, there are so many of them about, and you know, like I think it's really important to understand the implications as well. It's not just it's going to cost you X more on a mortgage because only one lender will lend on a 72-year lease, for example.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It might be just that it's the resale of that flat in the future.
Yeah.
So I think it's worthwhile getting to know someone who's not just a mortgage broker, but who knows property as well.
Yeah.
You know, talk to your estate agent, get the best advice you can on that, but not just on the one you're selling, but ask them about the one you're buying.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. And so the big question, what do you think mortgage rates and interest rates will be doing for the next year to 18 months?
Okay. This is the golden dollar sort of question, the
Sorry.
$64,000 question everybody wants to ask.
Yeah,
Okay?
and
no one's qualified to answer it
okay,
properly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can't give you,
So
shall we say, a regulated answer
No.
to that. I could give you a personal answer.
Yeah, what do you think as opposed to hope or guarantee? Yeah,
well,
there's no guarantees at the moment. That's
no,
for
I think
sure.
what we've got is a situation whereby everybody knows there's a cost of living crisis.
Yes, we do.
We've got inflation that is sort of double digits and it hasn't been for 40 years. Okay.
Yeah, worrying.
Interest rates were practically zero.
Yeah, 0.1%.
Yeah, and have been since 2008. Okay, so there's been no fluctuation in the market, and people aren't used to it. Okay,
We've had 13, 14 years of easy money, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And then people have utilised that easy money, if you like, and that pushes the prices up. And then what we're talking about right at the front end, if you buy too much because you've been told you can borrow 400,000, it doesn't make it a great idea. Okay, so interest rates, it's really important to also remember that there are different types. So we all get pushed as a society at the moment into thinking about fixed rates the whole time, because that, you know what you're going to pay. I know what I'm paying today, I know what I'm paying in 2 years or 5 years or even 10 years now. Okay, and 10-year rates, by the way, are cheaper fixed rates than they are for 2 years at the moment.
Of course, because they're hoping, well, I don't say of course, but that has always been the case.
Yeah.
They think that the rate in 10 years' time will be
so
better.
that's the experts
Yeah.
giving you an indication they think rates will go down. But do ask, okay, this is really important, I think. If you're looking at shorter periods, I think the cheapest 2-year deals at the moment are discounted rates. So that means you take the headline rate that everybody else is paying, and the lender says you can have less for the next 2 years. You can pay less.
Right.
So the cheapest mortgage rates at the moment are about 3.5% for 2 years.
And then what happens at the end of 2 years?
It goes back up to this normal rate.
Right.
A fixed rate
Yeah.
are about 1.5%
More expensive.
expensive than that discounted rate.
Right.
They'll also, at the end of the 2 years, go back up to the high rate.
Okay.
So one of the things you've got to think about with things like fixed rates and knowing what you're going to pay for is, do I think interest rates are going to go up by more than 1.5% over the next year? Okay, and I pretty much say that most experts now say that maybe 4.5% is the total.
Yeah.
4.5%
That's
is the Bank of England
I've
base
heard,
rate. Yeah, that's going to be sort of April, May.
Yeah.
So if you take that discounted rate, you're actually, it's going to be cheaper over the next 2 years than a fixed rate.
But you need a broker who knows where to get it.
Yeah.
How to get it. And of course that they exist as well.
Yeah, and that's the whole point. So I think, you know, if you go into like a comparison website, okay, a lot of people are too young to probably hear that, you know, have heard of this, but there was it used to be called with computers GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If you don't put the right information in, you're only ever going to get wrong answers.
And you don't know what you don't know, so you can't put the right information in
Correct.
if you don't know what you should put in.
Yeah, so when you're using a broker, it's not just finding you that best rate to fit you. It's also saying, I'm going to check your pay slips before we send them off to the bank. Mm-hmm. I'm going to check your bank statements. Oh, you don't really want them seeing that, do you? No. And just helping you, because we're working for you as the buyer, not for anyone else. I don't work for the bank.
Yeah.
You know, because there are 100 banks. So I can't work for all of them.
Yeah.
But what you can do is you can work for that buyer, give them the correct advice, then be there for them 2 years or 5 years down the line, ahead of when they think themselves that they need to be doing something about it. You've got somebody else there already working in the background saying, there's a cheaper deal for you.
Yeah.
And we'll bring it up, you know, and bring it to your attention. But I think, like I said, the most important thing is in all of this, is if you talk to a good broker, you will get certainty.
Yes, and that's what we're all lacking at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. There's, you know, everything is just, you know, how much is the cost of living going to be next month? You know, can I afford my mortgage, or is it, you know, filling up the car more expensive at the moment? Yeah,
doom and gloom. But as you say, if you know where to go and what you are working towards, then there is a certain amount of certainty.
Yeah, absolutely. You can create certainty in any situation. You know, that's the beauty of using somebody who's got experience as well as access. Right. You know, because lots of people have got access to, you know, all the different tools and, you know, how much a mortgage might cost, but not many people know, for example, that you may be able to repay it with your pension.
True.
Not many people might know that you can use mortgages for inheritance tax planning.
True. Yeah.
And, you know, not many brokers are necessarily qualified to give advice, for example, on equity release. So it might be that, you know, mum and dad, you know, which is one of the big 10 lenders now, the bank of mum and dad, you need somebody who's regulated to make sure that they understand what the actual consequences of giving a deposit to your children are.
Definitely.
Yeah. So all of these things is that, you know, you can create certainty by planning and say to somebody, you can buy this flat, this house. Yeah. It will cost you X. Yeah. This is how you do it, you know, and this is how we can work with you to make sure that that's the right decision, you know, at all the times.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. That's really lovely advice. Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Paul, his details will be following. Paul, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for letting us come to your home. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.